Hey there folks, welcome back to the channel. I decided I would end up making Battleground Blitz Tactics a series, and I made a community post a few days ago asking you what map you wanted me to cover next. More than half of you voted for Eye of the Storm, and I got the message loud and clear. So today, we're going to be taking a look at one of the most notoriously convoluted maps in Battleground Blitz, and I'll be giving you an in-depth breakdown of the map, mechanics, and strategies to give you a winning edge in your future games. Let's get into the Battleground Blitz Tactics. Alright, so today we're going to be taking a look at Eye of the Storm. Eye of the Storm is a base and flag map. It's consisting of 4 bases with a flag in the middle of the map. Now, the thing is with Eye of the Storm that makes it so unique, so different, so convoluted even in Battleground Blitz is that the rule set changes significantly. Here's what I mean. So normally in the battleground of Eye of the Storm, what would happen is that teams would fight to control each of the 4 different bases, and then depending on the number of people standing in the zone at the time, the base would shift more towards the Alliance or Horde side. And the thing that mattered a lot more was the team fight in the middle. That completely changes as a result of the BG Blitz rule set, which we'll go over now. How Eye of the Storm changes in BG Blitz is that only 2 bases are active at any given moment, and there will only be 1 on each side. It'll be opposite of each other as well, starting with Draenei Ruins for the Alliance side and Fel Reaver Ruins for the Horde side. And in addition to that, the bases are capturable as well. There's going to be a flag at each base, and they will cap after 4 seconds. Something else to note too is that there is a flag in the middle of the map, and the time that it takes to capture the flag has been reduced to 4 seconds from 6 seconds. When a flag is brought to a base, the active bases on the map will change every single time the flag is captured, to where the other 2 bases, which were previously locked and neutralized, are now the 2 bases that you can capture. We'll go over a little bit more about this in the map breakdown specifically, and something that is very important to note and consider, which makes Eye of the Storm not like the other base maps such as Arathi Basin or Deepwind Gorge, is that the bases do not lock for a faction when they are captured. So that means there is somebody who will actively have to stay at the base and prevent a member of the opposing faction from capturing it. Last but not least, there is a fall damage immunity buff for the first 10 seconds. This is really only applicable to jumping out of the initial rock, but thought it would be important to note too. So moving on, there is currently a bug at the time I'm recording this, August 1st, on Prepatch that makes it to where your camera is stuck inside the starting rock. How you can fix this is just by zooming in your camera all the way, and then you can zoom out your camera again at the start of the game. So let's talk about housekeeping a little bit. I broke down these add-ons a little bit more and why I used them in my last video, which I will go ahead and link here. But if this is your first time finding my channel, I do want to show that these are the 3 add-ons I run with in Battleground Blitz, as well as details. Personally, I believe if you have these 4 add-ons, you will have everything you need. You don't need anything else, and it is perfect. They serve their purpose very well. Alright, so now is the convoluted part of the video, which is how the hell do you actually win Eye of the Storm? So the best strategy in this map doesn't necessarily vary dependent on your own role, but more so what your team composition is and what they are feeling at the time. I've noticed that this map, it is significantly more important to use that 2-minute window before every match starts to communicate a strategy with your team and to commit to it, because the objectives in this map matter significantly more than I would argue almost any other map. Good objective play can allow you to absolutely carry this map, and it's part of why it's personally my favorite map at the time of making this video. That being said, I did split up all the specialization into 4 roles as opposed to 5 this time, because stealth roles, they really don't matter a ton significantly. It's mainly of what you are going to be doing. So obviously we got our tank and healer again, but I did want to kind of split up and categorize the DPS as to offensive and defensive DPS. And using this chart that I made right here, this will sort of illustrate what specializations I put into offense and defense. Obviously, you've got a good bit of specs that can play either or. And for me, what categorizes a good defensive DPS are DPS that have base spinning potential. That means if there is a DPS that is coming to take the base that they are watching over, that they are sitting at, they have the tools and equipment needed to stall long enough for reinforcements to come and help that base out. And offensive DPS, I personally believe that these DPS are just better at taking bases. They're playing more aggressive of a playstyle, tend to do better in teamfight. Obviously, Rogue here is going to be the exception because Rogue is just phenomenal at taking bases and making plays. But if you are taking a more offensive, aggressive playstyle, where you're trying to capture the base on the enemy side of the map, then I think these would be the good specs to do so as well. And again, if you see yourself in the either or, you're probably good with either playstyle. It's more so what you're comfortable with and what works for you. Now that I gave my breakdown as to why I categorize these specializations in these little lists, these categories, let me go ahead and break down what you're actually doing with each role, starting with the tank. So the tank is interesting because you have a lot of flexibility with your role on Eye of the Storm that you previously did not have on Arathi Basin. The main things that you can do are spin the flag in the middle. So what you'd be doing is you just be there, be a nuisance, prevent the enemy team from being able to pick up that middle flag and thus blocking the ability for them to score extra points. Or you could play defensively and decide to sit the base on your side of the map instead, essentially locking down that base, ensuring that the enemies cannot have both of the bases at the exact same time. There's a lot of different choices as to how you can win this battleground, and that's why people get so overwhelmed and end up throwing all the time, is because they make the wrong choices, and we'll go over that a little bit later. But basically, as a tank, you really don't have a wrong choice unless you are on the other side of the map trying to take the enemy base. But quite frankly, as a tank, you really don't have enough control to try and snipe bases out from under people, and you don't really have the damage to finish people off either. So you're a lot better being this nuisance that's in the middle, that's blocking the flag captures, or you're really good on defense as well. My personal take that I've seen work best with the tank players I've played with is to match what the enemy tank is doing. If the enemy tank is in the middle, stopping your team from being able to get that middle flag, you are also in the middle matching them 1-for-1. If the enemy tank is sitting at their base, you are sitting at your base, ensuring that there's a deadlock and that the win condition is your team fighting it out in the middle. So again, there's a lot of choices that comes down to playstyle, but if you just observe what the enemy tank does and match what they do, you'll generally find a lot of success that way. Moving on to the healers. As a healer, surprisingly, you have less responsibility in Eye of the Storm than you would for most of the other maps. Your primary responsibility is going to be to support the team fight wherever that is. So whether it be in the middle or whether it be at two different bases, again, we'll go over the strategy a little bit more in a bit. But a big thing that does fall on you is that you need to peel out to the bases that need help, and you need to do it as quick as possible. Somebody's sitting Mage Tower and they say there's an incoming to Mage Tower, you immediately leave the mid fight and you make your way over there to help out that base. We're going to go over this a little bit more, but bases in this game mode are significantly more important than any team fight in the middle could ever be. So that's why it is critical that you peel out to go help your bases should they need help. Additionally, do not overcommit either. If you see your other healer is going to deal with the situation at the base, you don't need to overcommit. Generally, one healer in this current meta can deal with about 2 to 3 DPS on their own without needing the second healer to come and reinforce that. And so your efforts are best spent putting pressure on other parts of the map that the other healer is not doing so. This also comes into play similarly to tanks, where you are matching enemy healers. So if they send one healer to try and invade your base, your team sends one healer to go and match that. If they have one healer in the team fight, you should be looking to match that number as well. I went over that a little bit more in the last video. And then additionally, you're going to be healing and dispelling and doing your general healer role tasks. I know I really haven't spoken a lot about what you really do as a healer in this series, but I have made a video about healing in PvP in general that I'll go ahead and link here if you'd like some more specifics on that. Moving on to the DPS now. My DPS friends out there, this doesn't really matter if you're offensive or defensive. Again, the only reason I made those categories earlier was just to kind of show you what your class is a little bit better at than some other classes. But you're all going to be primarily doing the same thing, which is to skirmish at the objectives, not in the roads, at the objectives, either at the flag or at one of the two active bases. You're going to be rotating two struggling bases as well. And should the opportunity present itself, you're also going to be looking for offensive base pushes. Because what's better than having one base? Having both of them. It's the quickest way to win this game. So if you see a weakness in the enemy team, or if you see the enemy team starting to die out in the team fight, you notice that your team is winning, go ahead and greed that. Go ahead and look for that opportunity to get that extra objective and punish the enemy team for losing the team fight. On that note, we are also going to be pressuring the enemy flag carrier. If the enemy team does happen to get the flag out from underneath you and take it to their base, if they happen to be the team that's in the lead, they can hold the flag hostage for the whole game and only cap it at the end right when they're about to win. So something that's important too is that you are moving after the flag carrier. You're essentially fighting a moving team fight, and we'll go a little bit more about that in the map review. but you are putting pressure on that enemy flag carrier to either 1, kill them outright so you have an opportunity to take the flag, or 2, force them to step on the cap, reset the map state, and then try to take over the positioning from there. Additionally, my DPS friends, sometimes you will have to sit a base. It's not the most glorious job there is, however, it'll more than likely be one of the 6 of you that will have to sit a base, or one of the 5 of you if there's a tank. Because it is important that at least somebody is performing that reconnaissance on the enemy, getting a feel for their positioning, and also notifying the team if their base is underneath immediate threat. Again, bases in this mode are so important, with there only being 2 active on the map at a time, and so you want to do everything in your absolute power to avoid losing the one base that you're guaranteed from the start of the match. So now that we've got our general roles out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about the main strats itself for winning this battleground. So for the main strats, the main ways to win Eye of the Storm, there's 2 options that you can really go for. There is taking 1 base and getting flag captures, and then there's taking the 2 base strategy. We'll go over both of them a little bit more on the map review, but if you happen to have a team that is stacked defensively or has a lot of good zone control, I would highly recommend the 1 base and the flag strategy. Whereas if you happen to have a team with more offensive DPS or a better front line, you could blitzkrieg the enemy base, then I would opt to go for a 2nd base and then try to hold both of those until the end of the game. So to see what this sort of looks like in action, I'm going to go ahead and load up the MS Paint again, and we will get into the map review. Alright, let's go ahead and get right into the map breakdown. So first things first is that I'll go ahead and use the red color here because it's a little bit easier to see. But I'm going to go ahead and be labeling the acronyms for each map that you'll see in chat. So when people say like, oh, FR needs help, you'll know that it's Fellreaver Ruins and not the new Bus and Zoomer for real language. The same thing with like BET for Blood Elf Tower and Draenei Ruins. So when you know people are not trying to see a doctor, they need you to come help their base. Alright, the important thing to know is that only 2 bases are active at a time on this battleground, and those 2 bases are going to be Draenei Ruins and Fellreaver Ruins. What does this mean for you? This means that regardless of what faction you're on, Alliance or Horde, the first base that will be available to you is going to be to your left. Go ahead and put those arrows on the screen, as well as the enemy base to your right. This is going to be good for if you opt to take a 2 base strategy, knowing which direction you're running in first, because I have seen people before just get absolutely lost on this battleground, and hey, I know it's a little bit weird with all the bases changing and everything, so let's talk strategy real quick. So if you happen to go for the 1 base strat where you're opting to put more of your eggs into the team fight basket and get flag captures to cross the map, and what you'll want to do is this: you'll probably want to send 2 people to whatever your first base actually is, because if you happen to send 1 person, there's a chance that in the event they send 2 or 3 people to try to attack the enemy base, that 1 person's going to get overwhelmed, crowd controlled on cooldown, and you're going to get the base snagged out from underneath you. Obviously, we don't want that to happen. So having a 2nd person there sit the initial base while you get a read on what the enemy is doing is going to be crucial for the opening part of the game, because your first opening moves are going to be the most important part of this battleground. There are ways to come back, but you want to be setting yourself up for success with this strategy. Then the remaining 6 of you are going to be in the team fight in the middle, trying to get the flag out from underneath the enemy team. And then depending on a few factors, you either are going to cap the flag or you're going to hold it at the base for as long as possible until you either get forced onto the flag cap or circumstances become favorable for you to capture that flag. I will go over a great breakdown of when you should and should not cap the flag, because capping the flag, believe it or not, you can actually throw the game by just doing the objective of capping the flag if it's done at the wrong time. But let's go over the 2 base strat, since that seems to be the more popular strategy at the moment. And having done both of these strategies, the 1 base and the flag capture in the 2 base strategy, I happen to win a lot more with the 2 base strategy because people really don't know how to play against it. So what you want to do for the 2 base strategy is you want to send 3 people to defend your base right here. You're going to send 2 DPS and 1 healer to play as your defense. And then you are going to send the remaining 4 DPS and your other healer to play offense. So if there do happen to be any incoming attacks on your own base, you will have a lot of reinforcements to be able to spin that base where you don't lose your current base while you are going for a more risky play. A good percentage of the time, in a situation such as Battleground Blitz, where it is like a solo duo queue game mode, in lower to mid MMR, a lot of people cannot respond to 5 people rushing down their base at the exact same time. So this will get you in a good situation where you have 2 bases. And then when you get 2 bases, here's what you want to do. Completely ignore middle, because the flag does not matter at that point. Something to note is that if, let's say you're Horde, right? And you happen to get both of these bases. You get Fel Reaver and you get Draenei Ruins. Your team is obtaining points at a significantly quicker rate, and there is 0 possible ways for the Alliance to score any points during that time. They're just sitting at nothing. But if you happen to capture the flag, while it is cool you may get a quirky 250 points, you are essentially resetting the map state by opening these 2 bases. And if your team's not prepared to get them, the Alliance will already have a base back. So what you want to do in the situation that you have 2 bases is you want to hold both of them very strong, completely ignore the flag in the middle, and spend these 2 bases for as long as you can hold them to suffocate out the opposing team. Because they physically will have to overrun you, then take the base, then wait 30 seconds, because the bases still take 30 seconds to cap in this game mode. That's 30 whole seconds that your team is still getting points from having this one base over here. Go ahead and put that as a green check mark. That the opposing team is still not getting points for. Even then, if they have to send 8 people here to beat your 5, you could just grab the flag, hold it at this base, and wait till the end of the game to capture it because you've already won the game. So what is the main takeaway I want you to understand from all this map breakdown, right? All this strategy is that the bases matter significantly more than the flag, because if you don't even have a base to capture the flag at, there's 0 point of going for this middle flag. And I'm also trying to emphasize that it's even more important in Battleground Blitz than rated Battlegrounds to defend your bases. Because even like the RBG format, like the top RBG teams, what they'd do is they'd still invest in a team fight in mid. And so historically players have been taught, and they have this sort of weird innate thing in them that they always have to go mid. You don't always have to go mid. Going mid can be a good option if you have a team composition that can win the mid fight, but ensuring that your team at least has 1 or 2 of the bases will take you a lot further and will win you a lot more games. Something else I should note that I completely forgot to mention too is that just like in rated Battlegrounds, there are a lot of extra spikes added along the walls in the middle, or sorry, the direct part of the middle, to like a really small part around here where you can get knocked off, or you could even go for cheeky knocks. But I think the investment is really not worth the payout in trying to do that when there's other more important objectives on the map. Now regarding the team fight, let's say you do happen to go one for one base each. You know, the Alliance, they have Draenei, and the Horde, they have Fel Reaver. And the Alliance gets the flag. Well, do you let the flag get captured? I mean, you could, because you could start cheating your way towards Blood Elf Tower and Mage Tower, since you know those 2 bases are going to open up on the flag cap. The issue is, this flag carrier right here can just hold the flag hostage all game if they're in the lead without capping it. So it does seem logical at first to go get set up at those other bases, but if that flag carrier does not capture the flag, then the point is moot. Essentially, this team fight going on in middle is going to be rotating. You're going to be chasing after the flag carrier to the base, because there is a chance that you can kill the flag carrier and take the flag for yourself, or if you can't directly kill the flag carrier, you can force the flag carrier to capture the flag. And again, coming back from 1 flag capture is significantly easier than trying to come back from 2 bases being lost. Something else I should note is that on Eye of the Storm 2, if the flag gets dropped and the enemy team clicks the flag does not go back to mid. Instead, the opposing team who clicked on the flag picks up the flag. Same thing is that if, let's say, the Alliance is carrying the flag, the Alliance team member dies, and then another Alliance member picks up the flag, it'll still stay as the Alliance member's flag. But if a Horde member gets to it first and picks up the flag, suddenly they have the flag, and they'll have to run all the way over to their base if they want to capture it. A little tidbit that I thought you should know. So let's go over some general tips, and then we will bounce sort of back and forth between the general tips and the map so that I can show you what each tip looks like in practice. Alright, so tip number 1 is that if someone on the enemy team has the flag, track the flag carrier's positioning. Actually, this even goes for your own team as well. If anyone has the flag in the middle and they're running to a base, track their positioning and keep track of two things. One, does it look like they're going to capture the flag? If so, you should be moving to the next base that's about to unlock. We'll go over that as our next tip. And then two, is the flag being held hostage? If it is, it may be worth it to push some people towards that base to force the flag carrier to capture the flag, or to try to get the flag from the opposing team to your own team. And then tip number two is that if the flag captures, immediately disengage from the fight at that base and start moving towards the next base. So something to note is that after the flag captures, all of the bases temporarily lock, and then the two other bases that were not locked will unlock after 15 seconds. Eye of the Storm's a big map, and you only have 15 seconds to get from one base to the other base on the other side of the map. A little fun fact that a lot of people don't know is that leaving combat to actually be able to get on your mount takes 7 seconds without taking damage or healing. So if you are in the middle of the fight, you have to get out of the fight and be out of that fight for 7 seconds before you can even think about mounting up, which really then only gives you less than 8 seconds to get to the base. What am I trying to illustrate here is that if you are at Draenei Ruins, and let's go ahead and put yellow, let's say there's a fight going on right here, and you are involved in this fight, and there's a flag capture on Draenei Ruins. If you still continue to fight at Draenei Ruins, you are wrong. In fact, the second that you see that flag capture, you should be immediately leaving, try to get over to this area, mount up, and then head to the Mage Tower. Or if you want to make a sneaky aggressive play, get out of this area, head to the bridge, mount up, and head to the Blood Elf Tower. Because in this mode, thinking ahead and pre-moving to the next base before it becomes capturable will put you in a significantly better advantage to get that base for your team. The next tip, which I've already illustrated and I've already went over, is that bases should always take priority over the flag in the middle. I've said this before and I will say it again and again and again. It is much easier to come back from a flag cap deficit than by going down 2 bases. It's easier to come back from 175 points than it is 600. So if you're in the middle of a team fight and you think the team fight's about to win in the middle, but you see 3 or 4 people going to run over your base, you better stop what you're doing and get over to that base. And then tip number 4 is the same exact tip that I made from last video, which is to fight on top of the flag to prevent it from being captured. And then when you are actively setting a base, to hover off of the flag so that you can prevent the flag getting captured while you're distracted. And so you're not getting baited too far away from the base by the enemy team so that somebody else can sneak right in behind you and take the base. Tip number 5 is that if you do happen to be setting a base and watching over it for your team, and you happen to use your medallion trinket, which is the trinket that allows you to break crowd control, tell your team it is a 2-minute cooldown, and because most games in Battleground Blitz only last like 9 to 12 minutes, that 2 minutes that you cannot get out of CC is a big deal. While having multiple people on a base sit the base is an effective solution and can do wonders, ideally what you're wanting to do is rotate out and fill a different role while your trinket is on cooldown so that those 2 minutes are being spent effectively and the base is not actively in danger of being captured should you get caught in crowd control. And then tip number 6, cap the flag at the right time if you ever find yourself carrying the flag. We are going to make this an entire segment right now. This will be, I'm going to make a YouTube chapter. This will be a whole segment right now. Not always capture the flag if you are carrying it. There are situations where capping the flag may even throw the game for your team if you do it at the wrong time. We're going to go over what those situations are now. So how do you know when is a good time to capture the flag? You should capture the flag underneath these circumstances. 1, if you know your team has control of the middle and is able to at least secure one base for you to capture the flag at, then you might want to look into capturing the flag. Or if your team is behind on points and you need to make up for a deficit, then you should capture the flag. You should capture the flag if you are being pressured by the enemy team to capture the flag. Let's say you are at a base and then suddenly 6 out of the 8 people on the enemy team come up to kill you. You don't want to die and risk losing that 175 or even 250 point flag captures if they're able to get your base. You would rather just reset the map state, step on that base, and hope that your team can get to the other bases so that you're not throwing multiple objectives in one go. Or number 4, you need to reset the map state. Again, put ourselves in a scenario where we have the flag and we're chilling at a base, we're passively farming points, but then 6 people show up to kill us. At that point, we should just cut our losses, step on the cap, take our 175 points, and move to try and get to the next base before the opposing team does. It's important that you're looking at 1, both bases, 2, the middle, and 3, where everybody is on the map to determine if it is a good idea for you to step on that flag capture. Now that we know what are some good times to capture the flag, let's talk about when it's not a good idea to capture the flag. You should not capture the flag under these circumstances. Number 1 is if your team has control of both bases. There is absolutely no reason for you to capture the flag if your team has control of both bases, because when your team is controlling 2 separate areas of the map and you decide to capture the flag, those 2 areas of the map suddenly switch to the opposite sides of the map. You are giving the enemy team a free opportunity to get back in the game and get a base. If you happen to be lucky enough to have both bases and be the person carrying the flag in your possession, you have the golden ticket in your hand. All you have to do is hold the flag as long as you can and choke the enemy team out. You will win significantly faster than if you were to try and capture it, because in that 15-second window of immunity while the bases are switching, neither team is getting points. Compare that to, say, 15 seconds of your team getting the absolute maximum amount of points by having both bases. You see where I'm kind of getting at here with where the numbers are adding up? Number 2 is if your team is ahead. If your team is ahead, there's absolutely no reason to capture the flag, because once you do, you essentially reset the bases, and not only that, you give the enemy team the opportunity to get the middle flag as well. Again, if your team is ahead, the best move that you can make is to hold the flag hostage at your base and force them to go out of their way to try and kill you or to try and make you step on the cap. Number 3 is if you do not have control of the middle. It seems like it makes sense on paper, where it's like, duh, why would I just give the enemy team the flag for free by capturing it? But you would be surprised how many people actually do this. And then 4, if your base is underneath no immediate threat, it is totally okay to just hold the flag there. It's totally okay to hold the flag until you're forced to not. Something else I want to mention about capturing the flag is that you can automatically win the game by capturing the flag if your team reaches a certain score. If you have 1 base, the flag is worth 175 points. If you have 2 bases, the flag is worth 250 points. If your team respectively has 1,325 points or 1,250 points for 2 bases, you can capture the flag at that threshold and just win the game outright. There's some people who like to hold the flag for way too long, or some people that'll cap it a little bit too early and then end up screwing their team over, because then guess what? They have to go and try to capture another base for 10 points. I just thought this is valuable information that you should know. This is going to end the PowerPoint presentation part, and while I unfortunately do not have a good VOD review that I would like to put on display for you guys, I will go back over to the map and try my best to recreate this really cool game that I ended up playing that ensured us a crisp, clean, absolute slickest win I've ever had on this map. So with that being said, we'll go right on over to the map again, to a kind of game review. What's up folks, Editor Moon here. Just wanted to put in a quick little comment too about learning when are good scenarios to capture the flag or to not capture the flag. Uzo actually has good clips and videos. I'll go ahead and link specifically this one in the pinned comment below. But these are additionally really good resources that you can use to actually see, 1, how people are throwing games by capturing the flag at the wrong time, and 2, ideal situations where it is good to capture the flag. So if you want more of like a visual, would definitely recommend Uzo. You go check him out. And again, the link to his video is going to be in the pinned comment. But that's all. All right, so going over this mock game review, this sort of recap play, the best of my memory. What ended up happening was I had my instance chat turned off, so I had to turn it back on, and there was only 30 seconds on. But what had happened was my team was talking in instance chat, and they decided they wanted to go with a 2-base strategy. They wanted to sit 3 people at Draenei Ruins, and then they wanted to go ahead and push up for Fel Reaver with the remaining 5 people. They wanted to completely ignore this flag in the middle. So I was like, yeah, sure, that's fine. The bubble opened, and what we did was we sent my Hunter, my Warrior, and myself on Resto Shaman to Draenei Ruins. What ended up happening was that they ended up sending an evoker, a paladin, and a demon hunter over to try and take that from us, but because there were 3 of us here, we were able to actually defend this base successfully, kill all 3 of them, and hold the base. Unfortunately for the enemy team, we'll just go ahead and use, I guess we'll use white. They ended up sending 4 people to the middle, whereas our 5 people went over to Fell Reaver Ruins and took the base, with only 1 person defending there. Obviously, that 1 person could not defend off a 5 versus 1, so we happen to have both bases. So we were able to hold both bases for about 600, 700 points, and we were able to get a score of 700 on the Alliance side to 0 on the Horde side. Our Ret Paladin and Mage ended up making their way back around to the mid, where they were able to grab the flag. And even though we did happen to lose Fell Reaver Ruins after about 700 points, we still had the flag at our disposal, which we then took to Draenei Ruins and captured. Then what we did is that the 3 of us on the defense team moved on over to Mage Tower immediately without getting in any sort of skirmish on the roads. Again, if you're fighting on the roads, you are wrong. Just thought you should know that from from my last video and from this video too. If you're getting caught fighting these skirmishes that are not over objectives, you are in the wrong. So the 3 of us, what we did was we rotated back and forth between these 2 bases, and then we just played for flags from that point forward, because with a 700 point lead, essentially what the Horde would have had to do is take both of our bases and then stall for the entire game if they were to try and win that. We ended up winning this game with a score of 1500. I'll go ahead and draw a line through that. We ended up winning this game with a score of 1500 to about like 240 or something like that from the Horde side. And we ended up winning this game too in a matter of like 5 minutes. So it was a very crisp, very clean, very easy victory because we had communicated a strategy at the beginning. We had stuck to the plan. We had fought over objectives, and we're not fighting pointless skirmishes, and thinking ahead to the next objective which would be available. And so if you're able to implement these tactics into your next Eye of the Storm game, I guarantee you will see your win percentage go up for this Battleground. I know it's an absolutely convoluted mess. I know it's very different from the rated Battleground version of it, and it's certainly different from the random Battleground version of it. But the really cool thing about Eye of the Storm is that there are so many ways for you to come back if you are behind, and there are so many ways for you to take advantage of a good lead and secure a victory for your team based off of playing these objectives. And so with that, that'll go ahead and do it for today's video. Go ahead and vote for what map you would like to see in the comments below, and I will make my next guide on the map whichever has the most liked comment. As always, if you feel like you've learned something valuable or you liked what you saw, it would mean a lot if you could help my channel out by subscribing or liking the video or sharing with your friends that may be struggling in Battleground Blitz. I hope that I was able to give some more tips that makes this Battleground a little bit more clear for y'all. I personally have a ton of fun making these guides, and so just knowing that I'm able to help the community out by sharing the information I've learned over the years really does make me feel super fulfilled and happy. And I am looking forward to making the next one. But until next time, this is Moon, dominating on Eye of the Storm, and signing out.